when you're no longer there, they don't notice it immediately. At first, it's subtle. Maybe they assume you're just busy, having one of those days. Life is chaotic, right? People come and go. So they don't think much of it when you're not the first person to text them in the morning or the one who responds right away like you used to. They might even convince themselves that this little space is normal, that you'll come back, that you're just giving them time again. But then that space becomes consistent. The good morning texts stop altogether. The late night calls, the way you used to show up for them emotionally, even when they didn't ask for it, all of that starts to vanish. That's when they feel it, not all at once, but it builds. It creeps in slowly, like a room getting darker as the sun goes down. And suddenly, they're sitting there in the quiet, wondering where the warmth went. And that's when they start to feel the void. Here's what most people don't understand. Your presence wasn't just about the physical things you did. It wasn't about how often you reached out or how many plans you made. It was about how they felt when you were around, the sense of being thought of, the comfort of knowing someone was in their corner. That's what starts to go missing. Not the text, but the feeling behind the text. Not the conversation, but the connection they got used to. They thought you'd always be there. Not because they were malicious or didn't care, but because they got comfortable. They assumed your love, your care, your effort, it was endless. It was just part of the routine. They never really paused to think, what if this person wakes up one day and realizes they deserved more? And when you actually do pull back, not out of pettiness, but out of self-respect, that's when the shift begins. It's not a tantrum. It's not about trying to make them chase. It's simply a realization on your part that, wait a second, I was doing all the work. I was holding up this entire emotional structure while they leaned on it. So you stop, you let go, you walk away with quiet dignity, and that silence, that is deafening to them. They start to notice the difference, not in your absence, but in what your presence meant. They realize it wasn't just attention you gave, it was thoughtfulness, it was energy, it was someone actually caring enough to show up consistently in a world that is so used to being half in, half out. You see, when someone realizes you're gone, they don't just miss you, they miss the version of themselves that existed with you. They remember how grounded they felt when you spoke to them, how seen they felt when you listened, how reassured they felt when you understood them without needing a full explanation. And now they have to sit with what they took for granted. People don't always realize the value of emotional presence until it disappears. It's easy to get used to someone always being there. It's easy to assume that love, once given freely, is permanent. But love is not a contract, it's an active choice. And when you chose to step away, even silently, it sent a message that echoed louder than anything you ever said when you were around. You weren't loud in your exit. You didn't make a scene. You didn't send long paragraphs trying to explain your worth. You just stopped filling in the gaps they left. And suddenly, the gaps became visible. The space you used to occupy is now empty. The air feels colder. The room feels quieter. And here's the thing, they don't know how to fill it. They try, of course. Maybe they reach out, maybe they double tap an old story or send a casual message to test the waters. But what they're really doing is checking to see if they still have access to your energy. Because deep down, they know something shifted. That the person who once gave so much has finally realized they don't have to. And now they're stuck with a realization. You were not just someone who wanted them. You were someone who chose them daily. And now you're choosing yourself. That's where the regret starts to form. Not just regret for losing you, but regret for not recognizing what you brought until it was gone. Because now they're left trying to recreate that connection with people who don't care the way you cared, people who don't love the way you love. And that's when it really sinks in. Your absence is not just about a person leaving, it's about an energy disappearing, a presence that made everything feel safer, warmer, clearer. And once they realize they don't have that anymore, they're left with one thing, the echo of what could have been if only they'd valued it when it was still there. They feel it when they scroll through their phone and your name isn't lighting it up anymore. They feel it when they have a rough day and instinctively want to text you only to stop themselves because they know it's not their space to reach into anymore. They feel it when someone new enters their life. But it doesn't hit the same because it's all surface and no depth. And every time they feel that quiet, that absence, that drop in emotional connection, they are reminded you're really gone. And that's when it hits them. You were never just someone in their life. You were the difference. You know what's interesting? People don't always feel your absence right away. Sometimes it takes a moment or a few days, maybe even a few weeks, because at first they're distracted. They think you're just doing what you always do, maybe giving them space, maybe being patient again. They assume you're still somewhere in the wings, waiting, because that's the role you used to play, right? But slowly, things begin to change. They go to share a meme, and for a second, they think of sending it to you, but then they remember they haven't heard from you. That thread is quiet now, and they hesitate. Then one day, they hear a song, the one you used to play all the time. Maybe it's in the car, maybe it comes up on a playlist randomly, and for some reason, it hits different. Not because the lyrics changed, because now it reminds them of you. That song that used to mean nothing now carries a weight, a memory, an ache. That's nostalgia kicking in. And nostalgia is brutal because it doesn't come to you logically. It doesn't ask permission. It just arrives. In the middle of their day, in the silence of the night, or in between conversations when their mind drifts. It shows them moments they weren't even paying attention to when they had them. That time you laughed uncontrollably at something silly. That way you always checked in when they seemed off, even when they said they were fine. The things they dismissed as normal suddenly feel like luxuries. Now they fill the spaces where you used to be. They scroll back through old photos just to see your face again. Not because they want to talk, but because they miss what it felt like to be seen by you. They miss what it felt like to have someone who actually gave a damn, someone who noticed. And now they're left with digital footprints of moments that used to be real. Here's the cruel part of it all. When someone loses you, they don't just lose a person, they lose a feeling, a version of themselves that they only accessed when they were around you. Maybe they felt admired. Maybe they felt supported. Maybe they felt safe. And now, without you, that version of them feels harder to access. You see, you weren't just a presence. You were a mirror. You reflected back to them parts of themselves they may have liked or maybe even needed. And your absence isn't just the absence of your body. It's the absence of that emotional mirror. That's why nostalgia stings. Because it's not just about missing you. It's about missing who they were with you, the comfort, the connection, the care. And once that's gone, once it's no longer accessible, they start to feel it in layers. At first, they think, maybe you're just busy. Then, maybe you're pulling away. Then finally, wait, what if you're actually gone? That realization doesn't land all at once. It builds. It's in the messages left on read, in the moments they expect a reaction and don't get one. In the realization that they can't just dip back in whenever it's convenient anymore. And by the time that lands, it's too late. What used to be effortless is now out of reach. And here's what no one wants to admit. The reason it hits them so hard is because they never expected you to leave. You showed up consistently. You forgave more than once. You stayed when it would have been easier to go. You were there even when you didn't feel prioritized. So they built a fantasy in their mind that you'd always be there. But eventually, even the kindest heart draws a line. Even the most patient soul runs out of second chances. And when you finally pulled back, not out of anger, not to punish, but simply because you were done investing in someone who couldn't meet you halfway, they felt it. They felt it in the absence of your energy. They felt it in the quiet where your enthusiasm used to be. They felt it when they reached out to you mentally, only to remember you weren't available emotionally anymore. They didn't get closure. They got consequences. The consequence of not valuing someone when they had them. And now, every time nostalgia pays them a visit, it reminds them of what they let slip away. And that's the part they have to sit with. Alone. Not because you want to hurt them, but because you finally chose to heal yourself. And that is when they realize they didn't just lose a person, they lost the one who loved them. Right. When you're gone, regret often creeps in. Slowly at first. It's subtle. It's almost like a whisper, but over time, it gets louder. And then, suddenly, it's impossible to ignore. It starts with the moments they didn't fully appreciate you, the things they didn't say when they should have, or the times they left your feelings behind because they thought you'd always be there. But once you're no longer in the picture, regret doesn't stay quiet. It grows. And the thing about regret is that it doesn't ask permission to show up. It doesn't come when you're ready for it. It just barges in, uninvited, and fills every quiet moment with the painful realization that they let something incredible slip through their fingers. Think about it for a second. In the relationship, they may have never truly understood the depth of your value because you were always there. Your loyalty, your patience, your love, your support, your way of caring for them, these things were constants. And when something is constant, you stop noticing it. You take it for granted, even without meaning to. And maybe in the chaos of daily life, they didn't prioritize showing you how much they appreciated you. They didn't tell you how much they valued you in the little ways that really matter, the quiet words of affection, the thoughtful gestures, the small acts that hold great meaning. You were there, and that was enough. Or so they thought. But the moment you leave, the dynamic shifts entirely. Now there's this void. Now they have time to reflect and to notice the gap you've left behind. The silence that fills the space is deafening. It's like they can hear all the things they didn't say, all the times they didn't show you just how much you meant to them. They start playing back those moments in their mind over and over again, wondering what could have been different. They start asking themselves why they didn't act sooner, why they didn't seize the opportunity to make things right when they had the chance. And that regret doesn't just sit in the past, it spills into the present. It colors their every interaction with others. No one compares. Not because they don't meet some checklist of qualities, but because you were the one who understood them without needing to be told, who loved them without conditions. And here's where it really starts to hit home. Regret is like a mirror. When they look at it, they have to face the uncomfortable truth. They realize that the distance they created, the space between you two, was their doing. They were the ones who didn't show up the way they should have. They were the ones who didn't speak up, who didn't express their feelings, who didn't cherish what they had. Regret has this way of making you look at yourself in a way you never did before, forcing you to reckon with your own mistakes. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. And here's the kicker. Regret doesn't just exist in one dimension. It's not just about what they didn't do. It's also about what they didn't say. And when they realize you're gone, they start to wish they had been more honest, more open. Maybe they wish they had told you more often how much you meant to them, how they appreciated you in ways that went unsaid. Maybe they wish they had admitted that they were afraid of losing you, that they had been scared of fully committing, that they had been too prideful to show their vulnerability. But now it's too late. The words are left unsaid, and the things that should have been shared are now hanging in the air, unanswered. What's powerful, though, is that regret isn't just about guilt. It's about awareness. It's about seeing things from a different perspective, one that comes with time and space. The absence of you gives them the room to fully understand how much you added to their life. And this is where regret transforms into a kind of clarity. It's painful, yes, but it's also a gift because it shows them the depth of their feelings for you in a way they never could have understood before. It's a wake-up call. And as hard as it is, it's the kind of realization that often leads to growth, self-awareness, and change. But here's the truth they'll have to face eventually. Sometimes regret is too little, too late. It's easy to say, I should have done this differently after the fact. But the past doesn't change. The opportunity to fix things, to make amends, is no longer there in the way it once was. You can't go back and rewrite the script. You can't undo the moments of neglect, of complacency, or of miscommunication. And while they may want to go back in time and do things differently, they can't. They can only move forward carrying that regret with them. Regret has the power to change someone, but only if they let it. It can be the catalyst for better decisions in the future, for more honest and vulnerable relationships, but for now, it's a heavy weight they'll carry. It's the price they pay for taking someone like you for granted. And while that might not be a fair reality for them, it's a lesson they need to learn. It's something they'll carry with them, maybe forever, because it's not just about missing you. It's about missing the version of themselves that would have been better if they had treated you the way you deserved to be treated. Regret isn't a punishment, it's a wake-up call. And while it's hard to accept, sometimes it's exactly what they need to grow, to learn, and to understand what truly matters in relationships. You were that lesson. You were the one who showed them what it means to truly value someone, to show up when it matters, to speak from the heart, to love without holding back. And when they finally realize that you're no longer there, they realize something far deeper, something that will stay with them long after the regret has passed. You were the one they needed, even when they didn't know it. And now they have to live with the understanding that they missed their chance to truly appreciate it when it was right in front of them, when you're no longer in their life. It's not just about missing your presence physically. It's the feeling of the space you occupied. The weight of your absence becomes undeniable. You weren't just someone they saw across the room, shared a coffee with, or talked to on the phone. You were the source of emotional connection, the anchor that held things together, often without them even realizing it. And now, with you gone, they are forced to reckon with that reality. Think about it for a second. Relationships, at their core, are about energy. It's not just about the conversations or the plans made. It's about the emotional exchange that happens between two people. The way you listen, the way you show up, the way you add value to their life in subtle and not so subtle ways. You brought something into their world that they didn't even realize they were missing until it was no longer there. And now there's this space, this void that nothing can fill quite like you did. It's a feeling that's difficult to put into words, but it's undeniable. They start to feel a sense of emptiness, a hole where you used to be. And at first, they might brush it off, trying to fill that hole with other distractions, new routines, or even new people. But the truth is, no one can truly replace the energy that you brought into their life. That's the kind of absence that's felt deeply, and it's the kind of absence that has them questioning everything they took for granted. You see, in many relationships, we get used to the way things flow. There's a rhythm to it, a natural ebb and flow of communication, touch, support, and understanding. We start to believe that this flow will always be there, that the rhythm will never be disrupted. But when you leave, when that flow is suddenly cut off, they realize just how much of themselves they invested in that connection. They realize that it wasn't just about you, but the emotional bond that had formed between the two of you. And without it, they feel unmoored, like they're floating in a sea without a paddle. It's a strange realization. They may have never fully understood how much they relied on you to ground them until they feel the absence of your presence. They might even catch themselves reaching for their phone to share something with you, only to remember you're no longer there. And in those moments, it becomes painfully clear that their life has changed in ways they never thought possible. The void isn't just the absence of a person, it's the absence of everything you represented in their life. It's the quiet after the storm, the stillness after the noise. It's a reminder of what they once had, and now what they've lost. At first, the void can be unsettling. They may try to fill it with anything they can, new experiences, new people, distractions, and sometimes even temporary fixes that feel good in the moment. But over time, the weight of the absence starts to settle in. The silence gets louder, the thoughts of you become more persistent, the memories more vivid. And as much as they might want to move on or convince themselves that they're fine, they can't shake the fact that you were a constant in their life, a constant that they didn't fully appreciate until now. What's more challenging for them, though, is that they know this absence is not just temporary, it's permanent. You're not just on a break, not just taking a step back for a moment, you're gone. And that finality, that realization that there's no going back, weighs on them in a way nothing else can. The idea of if only starts creeping into their mind. They start thinking about all the small moments they could have handled differently, the things they could have said, the things they could have done. It's as if in their mind, the absence becomes a mirror reflecting all the things they wish they'd done before it was too late. But here's the thing, they're not just missing you. They're missing how they felt when you were around. You brought something out in them that no one else could. Maybe it was the comfort of knowing that no matter how difficult the day, they could count on you to understand, to be there. Maybe it was the encouragement you offered, the way you lifted them up when they didn't have the strength to lift themselves. Maybe it was the genuine connection, the way they could be their true unfiltered selves around you. And now, without you, they're left to face the fact that they don't have that same sense of comfort, encouragement, or connection with anyone else. They may try to fill that gap with others, but the truth is, once someone has given you that kind of emotional value, once they've shown you a different level of care and understanding, it's difficult for anyone else to compare. People can try, but they can never quite recreate that dynamic. And deep down, they know it. They know that in you, they had something unique, something real. And now they're left to live with the consequences of not realizing what they had until it was gone. What's particularly hard for them, though, is the awareness that it's too late for them to make a difference now. No more apologies. No more promises to change. The opportunity to fix things, to try again, has slipped through their fingers. And with that, the sense of loss only deepens. It's not just about missing the person. They're missing the possibility of what could have been. They're mourning the potential they never fully tapped into because they didn't see its value until it was out of reach. And this is where the true realization hits. They weren't just losing you as a person. They were losing a part of themselves. You helped them become a version of themselves they could rely on, a version that felt secure, understood, and appreciated. Without you, they have to relearn how to exist without that support. They may feel like they've been thrown into unfamiliar waters, trying to navigate life without the person who once anchored them. It's uncomfortable, disorienting, and something they'll never truly get over. Not because they can't move on, but because they now know that the space you left will never be filled in quite the same way. And that's when the regret hits. Not just about losing you, but about how they never gave enough when they had the chance. How they never truly acknowledged how much you meant to them until it was too late. The realization of what they've lost, it's heavy. It's something that sits with them, constantly reminding them of what was and what could have been. In the end, they feel the absence because, in a way, you were never just there. You were part of the foundation that held their world together. Now that foundation is cracked, and they're left standing in the rubble, wondering how they let it slip away. They might act like they're fine. Maybe they'll put on a face, check social media, go out with friends, fill the gaps with distractions. You've probably seen it. They're trying to convince themselves and the world around them that they're okay. But deep down, there's something they're not addressing. And that's the battle between their ego and their heart. It's easy to get caught in the trap of thinking that when you walk away, you're simply a memory they can push aside, something they'll just forget. But here's the thing, they won't. It's not that simple. Their ego, the part of them that's all about protecting the image, starts kicking in. It tells them to brush it off, to not seem affected, to maintain control, and avoid looking vulnerable. Ego wants to protect them from the sting of real feelings. So they'll put up a wall, act like they don't care, maybe even convince themselves they don't. But it's a lie. The truth is, the heart knows something the ego does. It understands that your connection wasn't something they can replace or forget. It's that quiet but deep knowing that you were someone who saw them fully, who truly got them in a way no one else did. When they wake up and realize you're no longer part of their world, that realization is sharp. It hurts because they know it's real. And no amount of pretending will change that. This inner conflict between what they tell others and what they feel deep down is exhausting. Their heart, now aware of the loss, is trying to process everything. They replay moments. Laughs shared, the quiet conversations, the simple things that felt so comfortable and natural when you were there, but their ego fights back. It wants them to stay strong, to show they can move on quickly, because showing emotion would mean admitting they care. And for some, that's the hardest thing to do. Admitting you miss someone, especially if you didn't fight for them while you had the chance, feels like failure. Ego doesn't want to fail. And it's here, in this struggle, that they start to ask themselves questions. Questions they probably avoided when you were still around. Did I make the right choice? Could I have done more? Why didn't I recognize what we had when it was in front of me? They'll think about the small things you did that they might have overlooked at the time, things that, in hindsight, meant so much more than they gave credit for. But by then, it's too late. The time for taking action has passed, and now all they have are these thoughts, memories, and this empty space where you used to be. And the more they try to bury it, the louder the truth becomes. They realize that you were the one who brought something different into their life. You gave them energy, warmth, understanding. You saw them for who they really were. You accepted their flaws and still believed in their potential. And now that you're gone, there's this gaping hole where all of that used to be. That's what ego doesn't want to admit. The truth is, the emptiness they feel isn't just about you being absent, it's about the fact that they didn't hold on to something valuable. They allowed their own pride, fear, or insecurities to get in the way of something real. And now they're left wondering if they'll ever feel that connection with anyone else. Here's the reality they have to face. What they had with you was a standard. You raised the bar in their life, and now they're forced to measure everyone else against it. Every interaction, every relationship feels like a comparison. No one will ever match up because no one could have what you gave. No one could bring the same energy, the same spark, the same authenticity you offered. It's not just about the big moments, it's the little things that mattered, the quiet, the way you both could sit together without saying much, but still feel seen. The way you didn't need grand gestures to show affection because there was depth in the simplicity. These are the things they'll remember when they're looking at their new reality, and these are the things they'll wish they had again. But it's hard to admit that out loud. The ego doesn't want to expose that level of vulnerability, but deep down they know the truth. What they had with you is rare. The tough part, even if they can acknowledge the loss, it's not as simple as just getting back to you. Because you've made a decision. You've walked away, and for you, it's no longer about trying to prove something. You've set your boundary. And they know that. They know that while they might still care, while they might still wish things could be different, they don't get to just waltz back into your life as if nothing happened. That's a wake-up call in itself. It forces them to come to terms with the reality that they had a chance, and they let it slip. In the end, this battle between ego and heart doesn't just show them the depth of their feelings, it reveals something deeper about themselves. It shows them how much they were capable of giving had they been open. It shows them where they went wrong, where they held back. And for some, that awareness might be the most painful realization of all. But it's also a wake-up call, a reminder that sometimes we don't truly value something until it's gone. And when you walk away, it leaves them with a choice. Do they grow from this? Do they learn how to be more present, more aware, more willing to fight for what matters? Or do they continue down a path where they'll only realize the worth of what they had when it's too late for anyone to come back? You've set a standard for them that no one else can match. And as much as they may try to convince themselves otherwise, they'll always know that the best thing they had, the most meaningful thing, is now a part of their past. They'll feel it, and the question will linger, what now? It's only a matter of time before the answer becomes clear. When you're gone, they don't just miss you. It's more than that. The absence of your presence has a ripple effect, one that affects everything they experience, from their thoughts to their actions. What's more significant is how they feel once they realize that the very essence of who you were, what you brought into their life, is something that can't be replicated. No matter how much they try to move on, no matter how many people come in and out of their lives, they realize something undeniable. You were the standard. The bar was set when you were there, and no one else will come close to meeting it. The truth is, when you were part of their world, they didn't always appreciate it. Maybe they didn't fully grasp how unique you were until you left. Or maybe in the midst of the connection, they got distracted by their own insecurities, fears, or even the illusion of time. But once you're gone, that reality hits hard. Suddenly, everyone they meet, every relationship they try to start, every connection they form feels like it's lacking something. Not necessarily a specific thing, they can't quite put their finger on it, but something deeper, something intangible that made them feel seen when you were around. It's a difficult thing to grasp until you've been in it. They find themselves comparing every situation, every interaction to the one they had with you. They tell themselves they're being unfair, that it's just their emotions lingering, and that maybe they'll eventually get used to the absence. But they don't. It doesn't fade the way they thought it would. Instead, it settles in. And when they realize it's not just a passing phase, they start to understand something important. They won't find that again with someone else. Not in the same way, not with the same depth. And that's where the shift happens. They might try to brush it off, to tell themselves they don't care or that they're over it. But deep down, they're still carrying that feeling of something missing. They can tell when they meet new people that they're not you. They might try to convince themselves they're perfectly content, that they're fine being on their own, or that the new relationships in their life will satisfy them in the same way. But as time passes, it becomes clear the connections they're trying to build now don't have the same weight, the same depth, or the same authenticity that you brought into their life. It's not just about the big things you did for them, the gestures, the conversations, the support. It's about how you made them feel. They might not have realized it in the moment, but when you were around, there was a comfort in knowing that you understood them, that they didn't have to put on a mask. With you, there was this natural alignment, this effortless connection that transcended words. You didn't need to say much to understand each other. They felt seen in a way they hadn't felt before. And now, without you, they're struggling to find that with anyone else. When they try to find someone new to share their time and energy with, they might not even consciously realize they're looking for a replacement, but it's there. They're seeking the same vibe, the same way of being, with someone that feels genuine, real, and fulfilling. And every time they come up short, it stings. They might meet someone with similar interests or even the same sense of humor, but it's not the same. The connection feels forced, like something's missing. And then it clicks. They're comparing every new person by the standard you set. It's not that they're intentionally holding other people to a standard they can't meet. It's just that you were the person who gave them something they can't forget. You made them feel valued, understood, like they could be themselves without judgment. They might not have been fully aware of it at the time, but now, in your absence, it becomes clear. You were the one who set the benchmark for what a meaningful, real relationship could be. And that's why the more they try to move forward, the more they realize that no one else can replace you. It's not that others are bad or unworthy. It's that they're simply not you. The conversations with others feel more surface level. The moments that were once filled with ease now require effort. They start to feel like they're settling for something that doesn't measure up. And the comparison becomes unavoidable. They begin to feel frustrated with themselves. How did they let something so significant slip away? They start to feel like they missed their chance to appreciate what they had when they had it. And maybe they didn't value you in the way you deserved in the moment, but now they see it, and it stings. The recognition is bittersweet. They know they lost something special. And no matter how many new faces come into their life, it's never going to feel quite the same again. This is when they come face to face with the reality that the loss of you is irreplaceable. They may try to convince themselves that time will heal, that they'll eventually get over it, but deep down, they know that you set a bar, and that bar is high, so high that it's almost impossible for anyone to measure up. And that realization is a tough pill to swallow. But here's the thing. They can choose how they move forward from here. They can either continue to search for someone who resembles what they had with you, or they can learn from this experience and take the lessons with them. They can recognize that the connection they had with you wasn't something they should have taken for granted, and use that awareness to grow into someone who can appreciate what they have rather than losing it before they even understand its worth. They'll always remember the standard you set. And while it might be painful to realize that no one will be quite like you, it also opens the door to growth, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the next connection they build. One that's grounded in the lessons they learned from what they lost. And maybe, just maybe, the next time they find something good, they won't take it for granted.